Hi, I'm Lucy Arthurs and I'm going to be talking about the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction in Disney World. So, the background of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, it's an incredibly popular ride at Disneyland, Disney World, Tokyo Disneyland and Disneyland Paris. So, it is one of the most popular rides there's ever been, really, with regards to Disney. Pirates of the Caribbean is considered one of the most immersive attractions ever created for a theme park. And when Walt Disney himself originally designed the attraction in the 1950s, he imagined it as a wax museum and a walk-through adventure. However, after a lot of consideration and deliberation, Walt Disney and his team of Imagineers decided that audio animatronics, which was Walt's latest animation technology, was the most imaginative way to tell a rousing pirate story. So, on March 18th, 1967, Pirates of the Caribbean first opened at Disneyland Park, and this was the first Pirates of the Caribbean ride. And due to the highly detailed scenes and special effects and the memorable characters, the ride received really brilliant reviews and has remained a beloved classic ever since then. There's been a lot of development of the attraction. So the original version of the ride was opened at the original Disneyland in Los Angeles, or just outside Los Angeles, in 1967, and it was the last ride whose construction was envisioned and personally overseen by Walt Disney, and he died 3 months before it opened. And due to its popularity, versions of the attraction followed at Tokyo Disneyland in 1983 and at Disneyland Paris in 1992. At each of the parks, the ride is slightly different, but overall they have the same ride experience and the same principles, really. To focus further in on the Disney World version of it, the attraction was not initially planned for the Magic Kingdom in Florida, because the designers felt that a pirate story in a state with a large history with pirates would be a lot less interesting. But this was not the case, so due to popular demand, a shortened version of the attraction opened at Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World Resort on December 15th, 1973. So the location of the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction this is in Disney World. As you can see here on the map, it's in Adventureland, and it's number 14, if you can see there, down at the bottom. That's just where it is. It's in Adventureland. So there have had to be changes made over time because of issues with the ride. So in 1997, a modification to the story had to be made because it was basically deemed sexist. So it has the women carrying food to suggest that the pirates are after the food, while originally it had the pirates just chasing after the women. And then in 2018 it was modified further because there was bad news articles and stuff about it. So Disney did the politically correct thing and modified the scenes in the rides at both the American parks. So originally they were auctioning off women, as you can see in that photo there, but now instead of selling women off as brides to the pirates, it's chickens and goods that are being auctioned off by the townspeople instead. So there haven't been many incidents with this ride, which is a good thing, but the incidents that I did find, so on July 10th, 2014, a 12-year-old boy lost the tips of his fingers when he was dangling his hand over the back of the boat at the end when the boats line up, and one of them hit his hand. And then a similar accident happened to a 40-year-old man from the UK. Basically the exact same thing, he was dangling his hand over the side. So the ride was closed for a while, but then they did their evaluations and they deemed it safe. It wasn't the actual park's fault, it was obviously the guests' fault for disobeying the rules. And finally, the future of this attraction. So if I were in charge and I was implementing plans, the main plans that I would implement would be to just stay current with regards to the films, because there's a new film coming out, so I would try to add new characters in when that film is out, just to stay current and keep people interested in it. But I would want to do all this whilst keeping the basics of the ride, because it obviously has had popularity for 50 years. There's a reason for that. So I wouldn't want to disrupt that and cause issues with guests who find the ride very nostalgic. And then, of course, I would just continue to look at all the safety measures around the attraction and make sure there's no more incidents like the previous ones I just mentioned. And then also an additional plan that I would make would be to stay politically correct, obviously, because there's going to be bad media issues if the ride isn't politically correct, and there obviously has been issues in the past with that. So just make sure everything's PC. And there are my sources. Thank you so much for listening.